Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Growth Path. Super excited to have somebody on today that's going to be talking about all things social. So I'm really excited today to have Brooke Sellas on. Brooke, I'm going to give you a very long intro here, by the way. People are normally like a little bit of, well, how did you get this? Well, as I mentioned to you before this podcast, I've been stalking you a little bit on LinkedIn. So Brooke is a top CMA influencer and strategist. Throughout her career, she's worked in numerous positions, including sales consultant, events director, director of marketing, social media. She's been a lecturer or is currently a lecturer at two different universities, YouTube show host, podcast host of the Marketing Companion podcast, and author of a book that says Conversations That Connect. She's also a keynote speaker as well. And on her part-time job, she's also the co-founder or the founder and CEO of bsquared.media. So So Brooks, super happy having you on, and thanks a million for coming on and having a chat.
Yeah, super excited to be on. Wow, that sounds like a lot. But I get bored easily, so I just have to stay busy.
Good. I'm the same, by the way. So I think it might be something in marketers that we have, like, I don't know, it's either ADHD or something. When we see something shiny, it's like, oh shit, let's go that way quick. So
I think it's a little bit of that, a little bit of curiosity, a little bit of like the client needed it yesterday.
Yes, or last week or last month. That's it.
Last year.
Exactly. Tell me a little bit about what you guys do over at B Squared.
So we started as a traditional social media marketing company. Actually, in the very beginning, I was going to just do social media strategy, hand that off to the client, and then be on my merry way. And what I found very quickly was that the clients that I was working with, which were like mid-sized to enterprise-sized brands, really wanted the done for you part of social. Like they wanted to hand me the keys and let me do all of the driving. So we pivoted very quickly to a social media marketing done for you agency. And over the last 8 years or so, we've really focused and shifted into what we call social care, which is social media customer care.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because like the social media customer care thing, as I said, I have had a look at your LinkedIn profile, and I also looked at the B Squared LinkedIn, right, and seeing that you guys are talking about that quite a bit. Give me a little bit of, or at least the audience, because I've done a bit of reading now. So let's talk about it for the audience so that they understand, like, what is that social media care? What does that entail? What is it? What type of brands normally focus on it, etc.? So let's start with what is it?
Well, when you think about social media, I'll ask you, what's the first thing you think of when you think of social media as a marketer?
God, you're putting me on the spot here. What do I think? So
content, that's where most people go. Like content. Creating
yeah, of course,
content
yeah.
For people who want to maybe buy from us, right? Social care has nothing to do with content. So it's very different from social media marketing because that's all based in content. Social care is about acquiring and retaining your customers through social media. Because what's been happening over the past few years and kind of heightened, let's say, it kind of started happening a lot faster once COVID happened and we all moved online. Is that people are now researching brands, shopping from brands, and asking brands either sales support questions, so potentially gaining that customer or acquiring that customer. And then they're also, as we all know, especially if you're in brand, going to social to complain about products or services with brands. So that would be customer support or retaining. So gaining and retaining clients. For us, that's all social care is. It's gaining and retaining clients through your social media channels, but it's also doing so proactively versus reactively. So the quick explanation there is for social media marketing, we call that like comment moderation, community moderation, whatever you want to call it. But it's very reactive. We're waiting for people to comment on our post or DM our brand and ask a question, right? We're waiting for them to come to us. The proactive part of social care is that we use social listening tools to proactively go out and find conversations where the brand or the products or the services are being mentioned, but the brand isn't tagged. It's like a dark mention. So people are still talking about you, but you wouldn't see that as a notification with social media management because it doesn't come to your inbox when you're not tagged. So in a nutshell, and I'm sure you have questions, that is social care.
So on that specific piece, you're looking at anytime the brand is mentioned, that's the last piece you spoke about there, but not actually tagged, right? So
right. Yeah. So Nike, let's take Nike.
Yeah.
If you were going to complain about your Air Jordans to Nike, you would probably @ tag Nike, right?
Yeah.
use the little @ symbol on a social platform, the brand shows up. You're basically talking directly to them. That is a direct mention. And hey, I hate my Air Jordans. Please give me a refund, right? If you are complaining without tagging the brand, you may say something on social like, I hate my Air Jordans. They're terribly made. I'm complaining. Like, I'm done with Nike, whatever it is. You haven't tagged Nike. Air Jordan may or may not, I don't actually know, have their own, tag or brand on social media. Probably not, because they have a lot of different products. That would be a lot of handles for them to handle. But you've now talked directly about Nike and their product with a negative customer support sentiment, and that's not going to Nike's inbox anywhere. Unless they're using social listening to look for the phrase Air Jordans or Air Jordan, they're not going to see that notification, and therefore they cannot proactively interact with that conversation.
Interesting. That's very cool. And I mean, like, so when you guys mentioned there, you're sort of doing the full funnel from gaining customers and also keeping customers, right? Mm-hmm. So you're coming into brands and saying, okay, so what's your social media selling strategy, basically? So how are you selling on strategy, right? Which is super interesting. I'm seeing it. It's a slightly different thing, but I spoke with someone recently who was talking about Amazon and how many brands are moving onto Amazon now to sell, which sounds like, oh, duh, but actually setting up their own shop on Amazon to sell. So many of those larger brands wouldn't have done it up until this point in time. They were trying to sell directly via their own website, but actually Amazon's the second biggest search engine in the world now, right?
Yes.
So after Google. So, and I can't remember how many more product searches happen on Amazon than actually happen on Google. And I would imagine it's probably moving that direction on other social media platforms. So let's talk about that for a little bit. Like, which social media platforms are you seeing the ones that are being most used for e-commerce purposes? Are there any
typically
winners?
That would be like Meta, Facebook, and Instagram. I think that's a pretty obvious one. We do see a lot of support, so retention questions that come through on Twitter. Twitter usage, though, for our brands and for our consumers is kind of on the decline. Yeah. TikTok is obviously a big channel for e-commerce. It really depends on the brand, what kind of products and services they sell. So here's my advice, like totally free. You could go out and do this literally today. I would go out to all of my social media channels and I would look reactively at all of the conversations that are happening on those social channels when you're being tagged, right? You have to be reactive with this one. Look at the type of conversation that's happening and then see if it is a support conversation, meaning is it a sales support gain? Like, hey, I want to buy these Air Jordans. Do you ship to Ireland? Right? Or is it a customer retention question? Hey, I just got these Air Jordans and they're not great, right? Tag all of those conversations. Most social media platforms have like a tagging or a labeling system inside of them. Even if you don't have that, that's fine too. Create a spreadsheet, right? Put the conversation in there, put the username in there, and then put it under the acquisition or the retention column. You'll start to really quickly see where most of your conversations are happening around support, whether that's sales or retention. And then that's where you spend your time. So, a lot of brands will go out there and be like, let's start a TikTok page because we want to be on TikTok. And I'm like, but why? Like, is anybody ever even talking about you there? Meanwhile, on Facebook, you have all of these people with these gain and retain conversations happening, and you're not even answering them. You're literally leaving money on the table or losing money because you're not even handling the platform that you are using to its full potential.
Super interesting. That's really, I think it's a really good tip. So just to repeat what you said there, look at where those questions are coming in from, which platforms. So make a note of the platforms and then make a note of whether they're gain or retain, right? Mm-hmm. If it's a gain, then this is a channel where I can probably see more new business growth. And then if it's a retain, and you say, okay, this is a channel where I see a lot of my existing customers. So I need to do a specific strategy to both. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. And then you're literally, this is where the C-suite starts to pay attention, or your leadership, your stakeholders, because you're saying, hey, for 2025, we're doing marketing planning. We're planning budgets right now. I'm sure everybody's in that position if you're a marketer. We've found a real opportunity on Facebook. We're using this channel. However, we haven't been using it as a gain and retain channel or a customer care channel. And what we're seeing is that, 50% of the conversation that's happening on Facebook is support related. And of that 50%, 40% is acquisition and 10% is retention. And so when they hear acquisition, right, we all know that leadership focuses on like ROI, right? And so when you say acquisition, and then now imagine this, you could not only say acquisition, but let's say you are a product and you know the MSRP, like the average price of that product that people are talking about. As a second little part of your audit, you could go through and place a potential sales number on those acquisition conversations. So now you're saying we have about 40% of the conversation is acquisition out of the 50% of support. And of that 40%, based on the conversations last month or whenever we did the audit, that's an average MSRP and potential revenue number of X, $50,000. Now, all of a sudden, instead of fighting for budget for social media, which a lot of leadership still doesn't see the value in, you can quantify what's happening and put numbers around what you're doing.
Amazing. Yeah. So like the thing that I found with leadership as well, because you mentioned that before, is like TikTok, right? I'll just go do TikTok. I've seen, this brand is doing something amazing on TikTok. You need to go do TikTok. And it's just like shooting from the hip strategy, right? Without looking at any type of data. Mm-hmm. And the problem with social, and it's similar sort of with the likes of webinars and things, or not webinars, sorry, podcasts. The same with podcasts. Trying to prove like the ROI on things is incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
Now, the great thing that you've managed to find in that social media piece is being able to have that direct open line of comms with customers via those social media platforms, which gives you the data that you require to be able to prove whether or not a channel is working or whether or not a channel is delivering revenue, right? Which is an amazing thing to have. That's cool. Tell me a little bit about the customers that you guys work with. Do you work with mainly with B2C, I guess, right? Big brands, Fortune 500 companies. Like, what type of companies do you go after?
Both B2C and B2B and B2B2C. So everything. But typically for them to want to invest into social care, there has to be enough volume of conversation happening, right? So even if you go out and you did that audit and there's like 5 conversations happening a month, they kind of are like, okay, our social media team can handle that, even though maybe they're not skilled in this. If it's hundreds or thousands of conversations happening a month, then they're like, oh boy, we have no way to internally handle this, especially because most internal teams work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And unfortunately, most of those like complaints that happen after hours, on the weekend, on the holiday. There's nobody watching those pages. And then, by the time they come back and they're able to respond to that person or get that person a solution, 2, 3, 4, sometimes a week has passed. And that, as you know, is really bad for brand reputation.
Yeah. And even with that, like, how are you managing that then? Like, how many people do you have the team, and how's that working?
We currently have a team of around 35 people, and depending on the brand, we have people on shift. So nobody's ever sitting there the whole day, just kind of waiting for something to come in, or looking at the social listening, waiting for something to come in. They're shift out. They choose their shifts. So if they're working on a Saturday, it's because they want to, or if they're working on a holiday, it's because they chose that shift or that day. So that makes it really easy for people to be excited to come to work and handle, all of these conversations, whether they're good or bad, because they have the autonomy to pick when they want to work. And I'll give you an example. Sometimes we'll have more than one person on a shift for a brand, because one of our clients, which is like a large direct-to-consumer electronics brand, they'll do a Facebook Live and they'll get like 1,000 comments on a Facebook Live in a span of an hour. So we'll double shift or sometimes triple shift some of these things so that, they're all kind of helping each other out. I picture it like there's a fire. This is a good fire though. This is a good thing, but there's a fire, and it's like when you have the line of people with like, putting the bucket, and then it's kind of like that. They work together to maintain that fire, in this case, in a good way. And finish out the shift so that all of that information, all of that conversation is tagged acquisition, retention, gain, retain, but we do other things too. We tag and label based on product name, right?
Mm,
Based on if it is an issue, what is the type of issue that they're having?
mm,
Because once you have all of this data that comes from these customer conversations, it's voice of customer data. And then we're able to go and help many other departments. So we're not just helping social media with content, right? Customers are complaining about Air Jordans. We have a fix coming from product. Maybe we should talk about that. We heard you. We heard that you didn't like the new Air Jordans. We're fixing that. Let us know what you want to see, right? Gather more voice of customer data. We can also go to product and give them information like people are having a real hard time with the packaging or putting something together when we open it. So why don't we change the packaging, or why not on the packaging we kind of put like an intro to instructions of how to put this together. We're helping sales, right? We're getting all of these types of sales inquiries through social media. Most of them have to do with X. Do you have language for us to help close those deals on social? And if not, that's a frequently asked question that we need to get content around. We need to have available. So everything that we do is customer centric, which really only helps every other department within the business.
that makes sense. That makes sense. How did you end up getting to? Because you said you just wanted to do like social media management type of thing, and social managing people's social media. How did you end up getting into this niche?
Being customer centric, I was listening to my customers almost 9 years ago now, and they kept saying things like, we want your help. It's not content. We have an internal content team. It's these conversations. It's community management. It's content moderation. But like, we know that people aren't just coming to us and saying these things. We know they're talking to their friends on social about our products and stuff. There was no word for what this was. I was calling it social-led customer care for a really long time. And finally, after about a year of these conversations, I went to one of the clients, which is a luxury appliance brand. And I said, I think I have a solution for what you're asking for. Are you open to being the guinea pig while we kind of figure this out together? And for 2 years, we kind of figured out what it was and how to service it and built all of the processes around it. And 2 years later, or 6 years ago, we went to market and started serving other companies with this service. So we spent a lot of time listening to the customer first and not rushing to get it to market, but really trying to understand like what it was and how do we do the doing for this thing before we started, advertising these services to other companies.
Amazing. And how many customers have you worked with up until this point in time now?
Oh my gosh, we have about 10 customer care clients. We're a little selective about who we work with, only because, as you can imagine, our customer has to really care about their customer. If they don't actually care about the customer, this doesn't work out, because what
Sure.
ends up happening is instead of taking action on this voice of customer data, they don't do anything. And what we find through social care is the customers start to get angry. The customers start to re-escalate, which just means they say they have a problem. We turn it into, like, say, internal to get it scheduled. They don't do a good job with it. And then we are getting the re-escalation. They're coming back to us and they're saying, why are you helping me so quickly? And the repairman can't be here for months, or we haven't heard from them to schedule the thing or whatever. So there's a mismatch. So we're selective about who we work with. And I also think the other side of that is the customers that we do have are on the bleeding edge, right? These are brands that looked at social media the way it's happening today or over the past few years and said, we're not doing this right. There's more. It's not about content, actually. It's about connection and conversations and really caring for our customers. And I think so few brands embody that mission or mantra.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you that. Like that was another question on my list. Like, are there many brands that are actually seeing the world that way? I probably don't think so, right?
No, we're working with like the innovators, the outliers. And I think that is part of why we love what we do so much, because it's hard. I mean, a lot of what we're dealing with is not the happy, fun customer, because we don't. I mean, as consumers, we're both consumers too. you can read the stats all over the place. We're more likely to complain than praise. I think we're like 10 times more likely to complain. So what we do is not easy, but I think because we're working with these clients who really care, therefore they already have a great culture internally and they are innovative. So we're constantly taking this thing that we started to hear about and try to understand 8 years ago and running with it as something new. It's new all the time, even though it's social care, and we know that's what it is now, because there's something that's constantly added or changed or gleaned from the things that we're doing with these really cool, innovative clients. And so that just makes the work fun. It makes everybody excited to come to work, even if they're going to have to deal with like Karen for the 17th time.
Yeah, I get that. That's really cool. That's really cool. The thing actually what I want to ask you as well is coming into next year, we're at the end of 2024. What do you see as some of the trends, big trends in social for 2025?
I think, from a CX perspective on social, AI is going to play a bigger role in customer care. There's so many cool things that we're doing with AI right now. There's a cool AI that we're building ourselves that helps look at that social selling piece that I told you about. And what we're using predictive analytics for with AI is to say, when you're talking about this product and it's in one of those acquisition conversations, and when you use this promo, like if we are social selling this lipstick, let's say, when you use this promo along with this particular product, you have a 10x chance of closing the deal. So AI is looking at these trends and patterns in these conversations when we are social selling or during those acquisition conversations and saying, hey, you could sell more of these if you always sold it with this promo or free shipping or $10 off or whatever it is, right? So it's helping us sell more. It's helping us understand what the pain points of the customers are more easily. So it can say, it just looks at the conversations that happened over a period of a month. This is built into a lot of the tools we use and says your top 3 customer complaints this month are X, Y, and Z. And then we can go back to the client and say, hey, we got to work on X, Y, and Z because these are the top complaints this month. So I think AI is going to be a beautiful thing for CX in general, but especially social media CX because there's so much conversation that happens on social around the customer experience. But that said, I still think ultimately what we're seeing right now is that customer still wants to talk to a human. They don't want to talk to a bot. So we want to have the AI make our human team smarter and make some of those smarter, faster decisions, but we're not replacing the human help with bots just yet.
Yeah, I think we're still a bit far away from that. It's coming. I think it's around the corner generally. Like I'm seeing it on. I mean, we've had website bots for years, but like
Sure.
I feel like throwing my laptop out the window every time I can't find an answer to a question, which is every fucking time. Excuse my French. It's like every time that I end up speaking with one of these bloody bots. Like I swear to Christ, it's like like
so frustrating. And that's the general sentiment of consumers. As marketers, we're like, AI, we're all over it. But when you look at actual consumer data, they are not there yet. They're not excited about AR. In fact, one of the most recent things I read, gosh, I forget where it came from, but it said that consumers will actually, if they're presented with 2 products from the same brand and one says made with AI, they'll choose the one that doesn't say made with AI. They're not there yet. So we need to, again, always putting the customer first. Don't rush to, put AI into your services and your products or your processes, like for us, unless the human wants it. So we're leaving the human on the front end, and on the back end, we're using the AI to help us make faster, smarter decisions with the voice of customer data we're collecting.
Yeah, and that's more of a sell then for the B2B. That's it, which is like on a B2C front, anything AI powered, like, no. And on the B2B front, everything needs to be AI powered. Where's your AI? I need AI. Do you know what AI is? I don't care. Just give
Powered
it
by AI. It's everywhere.
Exactly. Everything. Jesus Christ. It's like it's killing me, this AI, AI is the new omni-channel. Everything's omni-channel. Everything. Yeah. Anyway, hey, look, we're just on time here, Brooke. Where can people find you?
So you can find me, if you want to talk to me, Brooke Sellas, find me on LinkedIn. That's where I hang out. That's my social platform of choice. I think I'm the only Brooke Sellas on the planet, so you should be able to find me pretty easily. And then our website is B as in Brooke squared.media. So it's a .com and it's bsquared.media.
Good, excellent. I'll make sure that both of those are shared in the description here. Brooke, thanks a million for coming on. It's been great speaking with you. And hopefully I'll get you on at some point again in the future.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Love having this conversation. And I want to have more of this conversation. So do find me on LinkedIn and hit me up with any of your questions.
Sure. I'll make sure that everything is shared. Guys, thanks a million. And guys, this has been another episode of Growth Path. Tune in again next week for more great content. Thanks again, Brooke.